Hello everyone. I welcome all of you to the 36th session of the course Energy Law. In today's session, we will examine the global frameworks for sustainable energy governance. Let us quickly recap what we have discussed in the previous week. Week 7 was dedicated to energy and intellectual property rights. We started our discussion by examining intellectual property in the global energy landscape, followed by patents, innovation, and clean energy technology landscape, then technology transfer, licensing and collaborative innovation, then competition, intellectual property management and policy tools, and finally, emerging issues and future directions in energy intellectual property governance. In this week, we will examine energy, human rights, and the environment. We start our discussion by examining the global frameworks for sustainable energy governance, followed by human rights dimensions of the energy sector. Then we will examine the impact of energy sources on human rights and the environment. Then corporate responsibility, focusing on corporate social responsibility, ESG, and the emerging regulatory trends. Finally, we will examine the integrative approaches. In today's session, we will examine the global frameworks for sustainable energy governance. We start by examining the United Nations Secretary General's vision for sustainable energy for all. Then we will examine energy as a foundation for achieving sustainable development goals. We will then examine the global normative architecture of energy. This will be followed by a discussion on governance mechanisms and case studies. Let us briefly examine the background of our discussion. The global transition toward cleaner and more inclusive energy systems has reshaped how states, companies, and communities think about development, climate action, and rights protection. Modern energy governance now extends beyond securing supply. It encompasses environmental sustainability, social equity, labor standards, and public participation. As international norms and cooperative initiatives have expanded, they have created a shared framework that guides countries in addressing energy poverty, reducing emissions, and managing the social impacts of energy projects. This session introduces the key global foundations that shape contemporary sustainable energy governance and influence how nations design policies, regulate industry, and pursue long-term transition pathways. Let us examine the UN Sustainable Energy for All. The UN Secretary General's Sustainable Energy for All initiative was launched in 2011, which represented a landmark global effort to transform the world's energy systems to support inclusive development, climate protection, and economic opportunity. SC for All emerged in response to persistent global energy inequalities and the urgent need to decarbonize rapidly, aligning energy governance with the imperatives of the Paris Agreement and 2030 Agenda. The core objectives of sustainable energy for all include universal access to modern energy services to all by 2030, doubling the global share of renewable energy, and doubling the rate of improvement in energy efficiency. Universal access to modern energy services to all by 2030 focuses on expanding rural electrification through mini grids, off-grid solar systems, and clean cooking technologies. It supports energy justice by tackling inequalities faced by women, indigenous communities, and conflict-affected populations. It integrates energy access with health, education, and livelihood initiatives. Doubling the global share of renewable energy focuses on encouraging national renewable energy action plans, supporting grid integration reforms and storage technologies, and facilitating de-risking of renewable investments through guarantees and climate finance. For doubling the rate of improvement in energy efficiency, the priority areas are buildings, transport, and industry. Notably, there is a direct link between the vision and the broader development priorities such as poverty reduction, gender equality, health improvements, climate mitigation and adaptation, and human rights. SC for All is built on inclusive partnerships involving governments, businesses, development banks, NGOs, and communities. Key partnership models include high-level group on sustainable energy for all, global energy access accelerator partnerships, and NGO and community partners, and so on. SC for All also contributes to national action agendas and investment prospectuses. SC for All collaborates closely with the World Bank, IEA, IRENA, and the UN Statistical Division. Now let us examine energy as a foundation for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Addressing energy poverty is a catalytic driver of sustainable development with benefits that cut across multiple sustainable development goals. Expanding affordable and reliable energy supports livelihoods and reduces poverty, which is SDG number 1. Strengthens food systems through irrigation, processing and storage, SDG 2. And improves health outcomes by powering clinics and reducing indoor pollution, SDG 3. Electrified schools enhance learning opportunities, SDG 4. While clean cooking and reduced drudgery advance gender equality, which is SDG 5. Energy access also enables safe water services, SDG 6, unlocks economic growth and decent work, SDG 8, and contributes to climate action by facilitating a shift to cleaner, more resilient energy systems, which is SDG 30. These links show that expanding energy access is not only a development goal in itself, but a foundation for broader social, economic, and environmental progress. Now let us examine the global normative architecture of energy. The governance of energy, human rights, and environmental protection is grounded in an evolving global normative architecture. This architecture consists of international treaties, soft law principles, regional instruments, labor standards, and emerging climate and sustainability norms. They guide how states and corporations must act in energy planning, investment, extraction, and distribution. The first significant instrument is that of the Paris Agreement of 2015. Energy has a central role in the Paris framework. Energy is responsible for approximately 2/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. Achieving Paris temperature goals 1.5 degrees Celsius and well below 2 degrees Celsius requires profound transformation of electricity generation, mobility, buildings, industrial processes, and energy efficiency. It is required that states must submit and periodically strengthen their nationally determined contributions, which include renewable energy targets, fossil fuel phase-out plans, energy efficiency measures, electrification strategies, just transition commitments for workers and communities. Long-term low-emission development strategies encourage states to adopt long-term energy planning through net zero pathways, clean technology transitions, and climate resilient infrastructure. Significantly, the Paris Agreement preamble references human rights, the rights of indigenous peoples, gender equality, intergenerational equity, and public participation. This gives normative way to right-based approaches in climate and energy policies. Technology mechanism supports clean energy innovation and deployment. The Green Climate Fund finances renewable energy and adaptation projects. The second instrument is the United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. The UNGPs of 2011 form the global standard for corporate conduct in all sectors, including energy. It is a three-pillar framework focusing on states' duty to protect, corporate responsibility to respect, and access to remedies. States must regulate, prevent, and remedy human rights harms arising from energy projects, including mining, drilling, pipelines, transmission lines, and renewable energy installations. Enterprises must avoid causing or contributing to human rights abuses during exploration and extraction, land acquisition, construction, supply chain sourcing, security operations and decommissioning. And significantly, victims of energy related harms must have access to judicial remedies, non-judicial grievance mechanisms, and corporate complaint processes. Under the human rights due diligence, companies must identify, prevent, mitigate, and account for adverse human rights impacts. It is applied to land rights and displacement, environmental pollution, workers' rights, indigenous peoples' rights, and corruption and governance risk. Treaties providing regional access to information strengthen procedural environmental rights, which are essential for energy and infrastructure governance. The examples include the Aarhus Convention of 1998 for Europe and Central Asia, and the Escazú Agreement of 2018 for Latin America and the Caribbean. Let us now examine the significance of International Labour Organization conventions. Energy projects in mining, oil and gas, hydropower, or renewables depend heavily on labor-intensive operations. International Labour Organization core conventions set minimum global labor rights protections. The International Labour Organization core conventions that are relevant here are freedom of association, right to organize and collective bargaining, forced labor, abolition of forced labor, minimum age, worst forms of child labor, equal remuneration, and non-discrimination. Extractive industries often operate in remote, hazardous, and weakly regulated regions, and thereby causing key labor risk. The International Labour Organization's guidelines for a just transition emphasize on social protection for workers shifting from fossil fuels to renewables, skill training and re-employment support, and collective bargaining in energy transition planning. Let us examine the governance mechanisms. Effective governance mechanisms determine how countries plan, regulate, and implement energy transitions while upholding human rights, environmental sustainability, and development goals. These mechanisms involve national strategies aligned with global frameworks, as well as collaborative platforms that bring together governments, businesses, communities, investors, and civil society. Let us examine the national energy strategies incorporating SC for all. National governments play the central role in shaping energy governance. Many states have incorporated the UN Secretary General's Sustainable Energy for All objectives into national policy frameworks. The national energy strategies incorporating SC for all include integrated energy planning, national action agendas, investment prospectuses, institutional and legal reforms, and monitoring and accountability mechanisms. Implementing sustainable energy transitions requires the participation of diverse actors, and PPPs enable stakeholder platforms convene government ministries, private sector, civil society and NGOs, academia and research institutions, local communities and indigenous groups, and international organizations and donors. These platforms promote policy dialogue, priority setting, conflict resolution, coordination, and transparency and accountability. Examples include SC for All Country Hubs, multi-stakeholder advisory councils in energy ministries, national clean cooking alliances, and renewable energy steering committees. Public-private partnerships have become central to financing and delivering energy infrastructure. Public-private partnerships can bring private capital and technology, enhance efficiency and innovation, share risk between public and private sectors, and accelerate rollout of solar, wind, mini-grids and green hydrogen. Community-based and local governance models, increasingly recognized as essential complements to national and private sector mechanisms. Examples include community-owned mini-grids, cooperatives for rural electrification, indigenous-led renewable energy projects, and women's energy collectives for clean cooking distribution. These models promote social equity, local empowerment, better cultural and environmental integration, and sustainable operation and maintenance. Governance mechanisms also include alignment with World Bank and Regional Development Bank's safeguard policies, UNDP and UNEP technical assistance, International Renewable Energy Agency roadmaps, and other relevant energy frameworks. Such coordination strengthens policy coherence, supports financing, facilitates technology transfer, and ensures compliance with ESG and due diligence standards. Now let us examine Rwanda's clean energy expansion as our first case study in this context. Rwanda is widely recognized as one of Africa's most successful examples of aligning SC for all goals with national development planning. Its approach demonstrates how coherent governance, innovative financing, and rights-based development policies can produce rapid and inclusive energy progress. In the early 2000s, Rwanda had extremely low electrification, heavily reliant on diesel generators and wood fuel. The government adopted ambitious energy access targets, aligning them with SC for All action agendas, National Vision 2020-2050 goals, and climate commitments. The SC for All action agenda identified universal access, renewable energy scaling, and efficiency as national priorities. It also mapped undeserved regions and prioritized off-grid electrification for remote areas. The National Electrification Plan blended grid and off-grid strategies, detailed rollout timelines and investment needs, and incorporated geospatial planning tools to determine the most cost-effective solutions. The investment prospectuses created bankable pipelines for mini grids, utility scale solar, and clean cooking programs. It also attracted funding from the World Bank, African Development Bank, DFIs, and private solar firms. Rwanda achieved one of the highest off-grid solar penetration rates in Africa. It was supported through PAYGO solar financing models, import tariff reductions for solar equipment, and smart subsidies for last mile distribution. Mini grids powered health centers, schools, agro-processing units, and local businesses. Electrified schools enabled digital learning, evening classes, and higher teacher retention. Community study spaces with solar lighting improved exam performance. Solar home systems and mini grids enabled local micro enterprises such as tailoring, food processing, phone charging businesses, and so on. Women-led cooperatives started managing solar mini grids, and there was reduced time spent on biomass fuel collection. Solar home systems and mini grids enabled local micro enterprises, women-led cooperatives managing solar mini grids, and reduced time spent on biomass fuel collection. Electrified clinics improved vaccine refrigeration, maternity services, and nighttime medical service. Off-grid solutions created jobs in sales, distribution, maintenance, and financing, and enabled rural agro-processing, improving incomes and reducing post-harvest losses. In this way, Rwanda's clean energy expansion stood out as a role model for other states. Now let us examine the second case study, which is India's Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. The scheme is one of the world's largest clean cooking transitions. The scheme illustrates how national energy policies can improve health, advance gender equality, and alleviate energy poverty when designed with social dimensions in mind. Before 2016, over 120 million Indian households use biomass for cooking, and this caused severe indoor air pollution, respiratory diseases, drudgery for women collecting firewood, and high carbon and black carbon emissions. The scheme recognized women as primary right holders in cooking energy decisions. Benefits provided include free LPG connection and deposit subsidy, discounted or financed first refill, option for micro loans through oil companies, and extensive awareness campaigns promoting safe cooking and health benefits. The scheme resulted in improved health, advancements in gender equality, and it also alleviated energy poverty. Let us conclude our discussion. This session showed how global efforts ranging from the United Nations Sustainable Energy for All vision to the broader SDG agenda provide a common direction for achieving universal, clean and affordable energy. We examined how international norms such as the Paris Agreement, the UN Guiding Principles, labor standards, and regional transparency treaties create a rights-based foundation for the energy transition. We also looked at how countries operationalize these commitments through national strategies and multi-stakeholder governance mechanisms. The case studies demonstrated how these frameworks play out in practice, highlighting both successes and ongoing challenges. Collectively, they show the emergence of an integrated governance landscape that supports both climate goals and inclusive energy development. Let's see what's coming up. The upcoming session will explore the human rights dimensions of the energy sector, focusing on the key rights most affected by energy projects, the role of human rights due diligence across value chains, and practical insights drawn from leading case studies. Thank you.